Today, the Below Average Joe's MMA show present the weekend recap. And we are recapping three big cards from this weekend. One is now being called One Fight Night 7, Bellator 291, UFC Vegas insert number here. A lot to go over, mostly positives. I think there's a lot of positives to take away from this weekend. So, everything from those fights, stay tuned. All this and more, and it all starts right now. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's episode 270. Dom, at this rate, we're going to be passing the UFC numbers and even the Bellator numbers before we know it.
We've always wondered when that day would come, and now it's like in sight. That's crazy.
Yeah, only a couple years in. It took the UFC 30 years to get the 285.
Yeah.
But your Joes just work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see everybody's doing well. I hope, anyways, that everybody's doing well. The weather's starting to get a little better out here, so that boosts the spirits a little bit. They say depression is at its highest during the winter months, Dom, and I believe it because it's hard to be good, feel good when it's dark and dreary every day, and you know. But sometimes it's nice. Just look out your window, a little bit of sunshine, you know, a little nice weather, a little golf, maybe. I don't know. If anything, golf would probably depress me further. But you know,
that's a good point.
That's the difference between me and Dom, I guess. So this is episode 270. We're recapping all of the weekend's action. We had One Fight Night 7, Bellator 291, UFC Vegas. Insert number here. Mostly good for the weekend, I would say, Dom. I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the fact that our main event for our UFC card fell out during the broadcast. Dominic, that's the second time that's happened in like 4 months. And I can't think of another example of when that's happened. All the way back to, I want to say, UFC, wait for it, 23. Kevin Randleman was supposed to fight, I want to say it was Petey Williams in the main event. Could be wrong. But he was supposed to fight somebody. And right before his walkout, Kevin Randleman slipped and hit his head, and the fight did not happen. And they basically had to come out and tell the crowd right before they were expecting Kevin Randleman to walk out, like, hey, card's over. Wow. So, yeah, people were pissed. But that's the only time I could think of that happening, at least on the night of. And then we've had it twice in like 4 months. So,
yeah,
I don't know. But at least this time there was a decent co-main to kind of, you know, that felt like, you know, okay, that could be a, you know, main event, I guess. So, a lot to go over. Yeah. Dominic, how are you feeling? There was a lot to catch up on where we were digging a little deeper this weekend. We watched one Bellator, UFC. It's always tough when you got a lot to watch. You also have to try to, you know, that work-life balance. You're trying to spend time with your friends and family as well. How did it go this weekend?
Dude, it was a good weekend, man. Had the buddies over to watch the end of Bellator and all the UFC card. It went really well. Like you said, the weather is nice, and I just can't help but feel, guys, that right now, you know, this is our Monday edition. We're heading into March. March begins this week. It's a big, big slate for the UFC specifically and for MMA as a whole. We've got Bellator events coming up, big ones. We've got PFL season kicking off at the beginning of April. It just feels like a special time to be an MMA fan. I know for myself and Noah that we are so pumped for this content schedule that we've got coming with all these fights and news and what we're working on. Super pumped, super excited, energized, and ready to go is the best way to describe how I'm feeling, Noah. I'd like to think you feel the same.
Oh, completely. We have passed the calm before the storm. We are here. It is officially UFC 285 fight week. Maybe I should hold off on saying that till the end of the episode. I mean, we do have to get into this stuff. Yeah. But I'm glad you mentioned content schedule because we want to let everybody know we'll have a third episode this week.
Yeah.
So Wednesday, we will be releasing our next verbal sparring where me and Dominic go head-to-head, 10 questions, all about, usually about MMA and whatever the hottest questions are in your space, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I mean, you could submit questions, whatever. We go over it. We go head to head. There is a little twist to this one. Since I am making my return to the below average bet slip, Dominic has forced me into a gauntlet where I will be taking on the Wings of Death. This is not Hot Ones, but I'm taking on the Blazing Challenge from B-Dub.
Yeah.
So I will have 10 boneless. Guys, I'm a bone-in guy, but come on. I'm already going to get enough people probably calling me fat for eating on the episode. I can't be having myself looking like a fucking mess.
You don't want it
more
all
than
over
I
your
already-
fingers and stuff too.
Like
you
this
know?
is already gonna be tough enough. Just
Yeah.
let me do the boneless
Yeah.
wings,
Yeah.
So I'll be doing that, one wing for each question, and at the end, then I will be officially back into the gauntlet. And I'll be trying to do it without any sort of beverages. So
That's the kicker.
I feel like I shouldn't be putting this much pressure on myself. I feel like I should just do it.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about it later. But no, I'm committing to it. I will have probably some water, maybe some milk on standby, but I'm gonna hope to not use it, not be a bitch.
Fair.
Yeah. So that'll be coming on Wednesday. Be on the lookout for that. And anyways, Dom, I think we're just ready to hop right in. What do you say?
Let's ride.
So we're doing it kind of in order by when these fights happen. So we'll start with one in our main event. They ran it back. It was worth the wait for one Fabricio Andrade, as he is now officially the one bantamweight champion. He gets the TKO over John Lineker. Stopped in between rounds, actually. The end of round 4. John Lineker did not answer the bell. So Andrade, your new champion, 25 years old. He was putting on a clinic in the first fight. I think I made a mistake on last episode. I think I said that Lineker is the one that threw the nut shot. It was actually Andrade. It actually cracked Lineker's cup, which is kind of a crazy twist. That does not sound like a good time.
No.
But anyways, no controversy this time. This fight was brutal. It was fun. Both guys had their moments for sure. And Dominic, an impressive part of this fight for me is John Lineker has hands of stone, right? That's literally his nickname. Andrade was eating some of these big shots from Lineker, and kept coming forward, kept bringing that pressure, and had a great size advantage, of course, coming in. And he looked like $1 million here, in my opinion, even though like this was not as dominant or as one-sided of a showing as it was in his last fight. John Lineker's the real deal. Like I said, he had like quadrupled the professional MMA experience of Andrade. I think this kid's a special talent. And now he's literally our age, Dom. Well, my age. I don't know. You're not 25 yet. So
no, he's still older than me.
Yeah,
for
so
now.
he's my age. And I'm sitting on my couch watching him win a world title. I mean, that's got to mean something, that a kid at that age is able to beat a guy like John Lineker and reach the pinnacle of one. What were your thoughts on this fight and of Andrade as your new champion?
Yeah, that's the thing too. Not only did he become a champion at 25, but he did it by taking out a seasoned veteran. I mean, you said it on Friday's episode. What was it? Lineker has 4 times the amount of professional fights as Andrade. And he not only wins, but gets a stoppage. His last 4 wins have all been by KO, TKO. He put on a clinic here. He weathered adversity. We said in the preview that no matter what the skill gap is and whatever, like who may be the better martial artist as a whole, John Lineker has the equalizer that not a lot of people do, especially at the lower weight classes. And Fabricio was able to eat those shots, stay composed, and really inflict a lot of damage. It was just like for every one big shot John would land, he would come back with just vicious combinations. His jab was beautiful, setting up his big shots. It was just a really, really good performance. He was able to cap off that great work he put in that first fight. Worth the wait indeed. It was an incredible fight. Probably the best fight of the weekend. From off the top of my head, I would say. And it just so happened to have huge implications on it. On Prime Video, of course. So the US got to see it in our prime time, which is good. I hope a lot of people do take advantage and watch one. I hope they are growing that following leading into their debut here in the States in a couple months. So it was an amazing performance. And at this age, I really am intrigued to see what Fabricio can put together, a title reign, how many defenses, how can he keep putting on performances, and keep leveling up. You would only imagine at this young of an age, he's just going to keep getting better and better and better. So the future's bright here. We could have a very big star for one, I'd say, over the next 1 or 2 years if he keeps winning like this.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at him, he looks like $1,000,000. He's got the
Yeah,
size, big
he was
bantamweight for
big.
sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, Lineker is definitely a shorter statured guy, but I mean, he towered John
Yes.
Lineker here, and that was honestly the big differentiator in this fight. Was even though Lineker was, of course, able to close distance at points and land some of those big hooks and overhands, Andrade was able to maintain relatively a decent amount of distance, so
Hmm.
that way a lot of the blunt of the shots weren't quite landing as hard, and he was just able to kind of pick his shots, land good jabs, and I mean, he hurt Lineker multiple times in this fight. I mean, that's a very impressive feat for this guy who this was his biggest step up by far. Yes, I know he fought him already, but this was kind of the culmination of these two fights. And if they decide to run it back a third time, I won't be upset about it, but I kind of hope that we just see him take go take on another contender.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who that would be. I'm not sure Bibiano Fernandez what he's doing, the former champion. He's another veteran. He's like in his high 30s. So,
Yeah.
you know, you got to think there's someone out there who can challenge Andrade. And yeah, I think you're right. At this age and looking this good already, I mean, he's only going to get better, you would assume. And um, if he does, he's going to be a dangerous guy for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't have said it any better. Seeing someone like him gives me even more reason to want to be more intrigued with what one has going on there with
Mm.
their top echelon of fighters for sure.
That is kind of a good point. Is like, yeah, I will say that there is a lore to like when you're trying to, evaluate what you want to watch. You see a name like John Lineker or
Mhm.
Demetrius Johnson, and that might be the thing that pulls you in. Or like when Eddie
Yeah,
Alvarez was there,
yeah,
or Sage
yeah.
Northcutt. These guys that fought in the UFC who we're more familiar with, former UFC champions, perhaps. That might be the thing that lures you in. But then when you get there, Dom, you see all these great
Yep,
talents, like not
yep.
just Andrade, but you got like Adriano Moraes and
Hmm.
Stamp Fairtex and Angela Lee, like these really good fighters. And there's a
Yep.
lot that I'm missing when I'm talking about this. But um, one, we've had this debate about who's the second,
Hmm.
biggest promotion, Bellator, PFL, and I think it's still in terms of worldwide, I think those are 2 and 3. But in terms of the actual talent,
Yeah,
you could
yeah,
probably make a debate that one might have the second most talent.
yeah.
And you have to consider they're not just doing MMA, Dom. I mean, on this card, the
True.
co-main was for a Muay Thai title, and
Yep.
at first, I was kind of like, oh, I prefer to just kind of watch MMA. But then now that I've watched a few cards, I'm kind of more into it. Like I kind of like the change of pace sometimes. You get a little kickboxing, some submission grappling. Danielle Kelly, I think was her name.
Hmm.
Really talented grappler. A lot of people that she's like this young prodigy. She had a submission grappling match a little lower on this card. She looked good. And you do a little kickboxing, little Muay Thai, like it's kind of something for everybody there. And I think that's something that makes them stand out. Bellator tried it a few years ago with their kickboxing. I don't even think they're doing that anymore. So that didn't really
Yeah.
work out. So it's definitely a niche. I think it's something that definitely appeals more to an Asian market, but it
Mhm.
is something that makes them stand out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like too when you see those other sports or the Muay Thai only fights or the kickboxing only, etc., it kind of gives you more appreciation for that sport. Because how many times do
Mhm.
we see people from those backgrounds fully transition to MMA, and you kind of just okay, they did good there, but how does it gonna equivalate here to MMA? So when you get to see it firsthand, I think that helps you garner a better perspective of what all they do before transitioning. You know.
Yeah, speaking of which, that co-main had, like I said, it was for a Muay Thai title, and I don't remember the names of the gentlemen. I apologize. I'm not familiar with Muay Thai like that. But
Yeah.
um, I was watching it, and Dom, literally I think it was like the first strike of the fight was a leg kick right
Mhm.
to like the knee, and the fight was over. Like he
Wow.
couldn't walk on his leg. Like that's how powerful of a kick it was. Really weird. I mean, the fight was over in like 30 seconds. It was
That's
absolutely crazy.
insane.
So yeah, I mean they have a ton of talent, and like I'm saying, they have it spread out too. Like they
Yeah.
have it in all these different avenues, and then you get those interesting fights, Dom, where guys cross over. You know, Demetrius Johnson had that fight with what was
It
his
was
name?
Rotang, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rotang, where they
Yep.
did like the mixed
Mixed
rules and
rules.
stuff. Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. At the end of the day, I'm kind of a I prefer
Yeah.
MMA and prefer to watch traditional MMA. But it is fun when you do get some of these, it kind of reminds me of Pride back in the day with their freak show fights and stuff. Like something that's a little different, it's nice from time to time.
Dude, I just thought about now. We're just rambling about all these promotions, but really look at it though. We have the UFC as like the top dog, obviously, best fighters, depending on the weight class, arguably, of course, because we're going to get into that in a second, I think. But then you have Bellator, they do their Grand Prix. PFL,
Mm.
they do their regular season and playoffs. One championship, they have MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, grappling. All four organizations have something that is a bit of niche to interact with all kinds of audiences. And I think that's a really good balance to have in this sport. So
That's a good thing to say. I know we're kind of going off the rails of what the discussion was supposed to be, but I think we're at a good spot with
yeah.
MMA. Like I think now's a good time to be getting into the sport.
Yes.
There's just so many opportunities to watch. It's never been easier to watch. You got ESPN Plus
100%.
for PFL and see Showtime for Bellator. Then you got Amazon Prime for one. That's always been the biggest problem, Dom. We've been hearing about one for years, but it's
Yeah.
like, okay, how do you watch it? Like, it. I understand when we complain about like time,
Yeah.
what time these
Yeah.
cards start. European fans are like ready to just kill
Yeah.
us because they
Yeah.
have to deal with it on a week to week basis. But I do think it's been kind of an issue when like these cards start at like 5 a.m. on
Oh
a
yeah, for
Friday or
sure.
something. It doesn't make it super accessible
Yeah.
to, if you have a full-time job, a 9 to 5, it's not exactly the easiest thing to check out these cards. But now that they do have
Yep.
cards that are appealing more to that American time zone and having them at a decent time on Amazon Prime, it's never been more accessible. And they're about to make their debut in America, which I somehow had forgotten that we had talked about and
It's been a
made an
while.
announcement in the group chat. Like they did talk about it like it was official.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Bringing that rule set with the knees to downed opponents and stuff to America, which has been like, whoa, that's never really happened because the
Yeah.
UFC made sure of that. So I
Yeah.
do think that's cool. We'll see how if anything really comes from that. And they're going to Colorado. That's the birthplace of the UFC.
Dude, that's so true. I didn't even think about it that way. Maybe we'll go. We'll go to Colorado, maybe.
Hey man, that sounds fun. But we will talk a little bit more about this card a little later. But let's get on into Bellator 291. And man, what a performance this was. Talk about the performance of the weekend. There might be
Yeah.
a debate for that actually, but in terms of the level of fight we were getting here, Yaroslav Amosov coming in with so many questions. This is a man who had been at war for his country hadn't fought 2 years basically,
Yep.
close to it. And he was going up against his toughest opponent previously, Logan Storley, a guy they had a very close decision. Amosov got the win. Logan Storley, meanwhile, while Amosov's off fighting for his country, Logan Storley has been looking better and better,
Mhm.
showing he can get it done on the feet against Neiman Gracie, and then he's using his wrestling to get him wins over like Michael Page and wins the interim title. So all of a sudden, Dom, you had this fight where maybe some people were doubting Amosov a little bit.
Mhm.
And even though the odds still had him favored, he was like a minus 155. I did say I thought this was like the highest level fight that Bellator could put on right now. And in a way, it didn't really like I still stand by that, but Amosov just proved that he is just in a league of his own. He is on another level right now. And the fact that he was able to do that, Dom, while again, I don't know what kind of training he had while he's,
Yeah.
out fighting a war. I can't imagine he's getting quite the training that some of these other guys are getting, including like a Logan Storley.
Yeah.
So for him to come back and show that there isn't even that he's even hitting another level, um, This dude's a special talent. 27-0 now.
Yeah.
And it's a legit 27-0. This ain't one of those inflated records, people. I mean, this guy is the real deal. I don't, again, it's hard for me to really say how he stacks up in terms of worldwide welterweights, because that's such a good division in MMA, and the UFC have very strong people like Usman and Edwards and whatnot. But I think he's the best fighter in Bellator, pound for pound. I mean, yeah, you could talk about Patricio Pitbull or AJ McKee or whatever, but I would take Amosov if I'm going pound for pound. Who's the best?
100%. I was literally going to say that if you didn't. And I think it's not even up for debate, actually, that he's the best fighter in that promotion. Like Noah said, it's not an inflated record. 27-0, 8-0 in Bellator, 2 wins over Logan Storley. Why am I blanking on who he took? He took the belt from Douglas Lima and made it look very easy in that one too. So we have a really legit talent here. 29 years old, just now getting into his prime. My goodness, this is a phenom. This is a guy that can have the belt a very, very long time. And no, I wanted to bring that up too about that worldwide debate. I saw someone tweet, and I can't remember who it was, so I apologize. I just glanced by it this morning, but they said Bellator can make a clear argument to have the best fighter at welterweight, which would be, and this is in the world, by the way, with Amosov, middleweight with Johnny Eblen, and light heavyweight with Vadim Nemkov. They said that Bellator has a good argument to make a state that they have the best fighter across those 3 divisions. And now I'd be interested to hear what people think about that, but they are all at least in the discussion. I think what did I say Friday? The winner of this is a top 5 in the world. And I feel that way after this performance. Amosov looks like a guy that can hang with anyone, man. So I just thought that was interesting, and feel free to give your thoughts on that tweet too.
This was an incredible performance. With that being said, that is one of the craziest thoughts I've ever heard. I do think you can make an argument that he's in like the top 5, in the world. And this is all, I mean, we're never going to really know, but
oh no, never.
I mean, I still think Usman's the best welterweight in the world. And I mean,
and he's not even the champ,
Yeah, he's not the champ. So, I mean, then you got Leon Edwards. And that being said, Johnny Eblen's an interesting one because he's a guy that's kind of been under the radar, truthfully.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
But he's really good. And I mean, his skill set, I'm still not sure how what's the word I'm looking for? 3-dimensional his skill set is. It feels like he might be a bit 1-dimensional still, but that 1 dimension is one of the best wrestling games in all of MMA. And when you look at middleweight, and a lot of these guys are high-level strikers, he's kind of a Achilles heel for a lot of these guys, you feel like. So that's an interesting thought, but even Nemkov, I could definitely see there being an argument for. Light heavyweight's just not quite as strong as welterweight, especially. But I don't want to get held up on that because Amosov did. This is probably going to be in the for anybody who's doing like performance of the year, type awards at the end of the year. You better have Amosov up there because Logan Storley is a damn good fighter. And he had nothing for him. There was not 1 second of this fight, Dom, that Logan Storley was A, in control of, and B, winning.
Yeah, it was completely flawless. And rarely each year you can count on one hand across all weight classes and all promotions how many flawless performances there are. This is one of them right here, undoubtedly.
And you want to know what's crazy, Dom, is according to Amosov himself, guess where he's going now? He's going back to fight.
Wow.
Like back to fight the war.
Yeah.
Like who knows when we're going to see him next? And again, these are things that are bigger than sports. I know that's kind of a cliche to say, but it really is, obviously. So, it may not be right to even speculate what could be next for him, but all I know is, this division obviously going to have to keep moving. If you get another interim champion, fine. But I have a hard time believing anybody is going to beat this guy for a long time.
Yeah, I'm looking at the list. I can't really name one either. So we really are on to something here. This could be one of the most longest reigning, most dominant champions Bellator's ever had if he keeps going at this rate.
No, fair enough. We will talk a little bit more about Bellator 291 in a bit. But the UFC main event, Dom, not Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. That fight fell off during the card. They announced
Yeah.
that Krylov had fallen ill. Unfortunately, the fight was pulled. So then Brendan Allen and Andre Muniz get bumped to the main event. And I will say that, is it a main event level fight? I don't know, but um, it at least was an easier one to stomach than like when Derek Lewis, Sergey Spivak fell
Yeah.
off, and you had Kennedy and Zachukwu and
And
Jan
Kudalaba.
Kudalaba
Yeah.
as your main event. So in your new main event, Brendan Allen, in some ways, maybe shocks the world. I don't know if you could say that when he wasn't quite a massive underdog, but I think a lot of people were riding with Muniz here, and Brendan Allen
Yeah.
gets the submission.
That's the kicker.
That's the
Yeah.
kicker.
Yeah.
Round 3, 4 minutes, 25 seconds in. Dominic, I'm just going to ask you, was this the best performance of Brendan Allen's career?
It absolutely was, and it was the biggest win of his career. Man, I've been loving this guy for a long time. He just could never get like that really big win to set him apart. I guess like he's a fun fighter. He's a young guy with potential, but he just had never realized it yet. Last night he realized it. You beat number 11 Andre Muniz, who was just kicking everyone's ass since he had came into the UFC. And not only do you beat him, you arguably win all 3 rounds. That first round was close. It was a really good fight. Yeah, he wins round 2 and he wins round 3 and then gets a submission to top everything off. You out grapple a jiu-jitsu tactician. Don't forget, guys, Andre Muniz submitted Jacare Souza and broke his arm. And Brendan Allen just out grappled him for 2 rounds. The first round was a lot of striking. That's impressive. This was a really good performance, a huge, huge win for Brendan Allen at 27 years old. He's now won 4 straight. He's going to get a ranking next to his name on Tuesday morning. I can't help but be happy for this guy. I love seeing him maybe, just maybe, starting to reach in to that prime and to that potential that I've always believed he had. Was just hesitant to say how far it could take him.
I'll give you that credit, Dom. Since we've done this show, I felt like you've really been on Brendan
Yeah.
Allen's kind of hype train, and maybe that cooled off just because, like you said, I think consistency has been a problem for him. And for as good as he can be offensively, he's got good stand up, powerful guy. He's also got great wrestling, good submissions. It also feels like he makes a lot of mistakes and gets caught, whether it be in the striking or he gets caught on the ground in a submission. That's happened a lot of times to him. So consistency has been kind of the key. And if he performs like this, time in and time out, I mean, who knows how far he can take this? Dominic, since we've done this podcast, I think this is the biggest raise. How do I word this? I don't think there's been another guy or girl who going into a fight I had at a certain value, who I had at a certain ceiling in my head, who raised it higher than what Brendan Allen did in one
In
fight.
just one fight. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this was the biggest jump in my value of someone in one fight since we've done this show. Brendan Allen I thought was good, but I just thought he was a bit mistake prone. Kind of a killer be killed a little bit, a fun fighter, but never going to be a guy who's, in the upper echelon of this division. And then he goes in and beats Andre Muniz, who I maybe haven't been as high on as some people. Like I think Dom, even you said, and this isn't a knock on you for saying this, but I think you said he was the most underrated top 15 fighter in the UFC. And I think a lot of people probably held that same belief. And you look at his dominant wins over Uriah Hall and submitting Jacare Souza. He looked like a special talent.
Yeah.
And he went, and this fight occurs, and Brendan Allen, not dominated, but Brendan Allen won this fight no matter where it went.
Yeah, very convincing.
What's weird about it is I feel like Muniz had some success in the striking, which was not something I saw coming. But in terms of grappling, he had nothing. It's just a weird turn of events there. And Brendan Allen to end up submitting Andre Muniz. I mean, that is one he's gonna tell his grandkids about, when he gets older. I don't know, Dom. Like now all of a sudden I'm thinking, maybe Brendan Allen, he's gonna be top 15, obviously, after this win. Maybe he can be a real player in this division. likely get a guy, I don't know what his next fight will be. I don't know if he'll be one of those guys who fights ahead, since he was sort of unexpectedly now dropped into the top 15. He may be one of those guys that ends up fighting someone, kind of like how Muniz did here. He may be a guy that ends up fighting someone outside looking in.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, if he keeps winning, Dom, by the end of 2024, maybe you could really be seeing this guy fighting for potentially a title eliminator, or putting himself in the title conversation. I think that's really in play for him at this point. It's just a matter of, can he remain consistent? If he fights like he did Saturday night, there's no doubt in my mind he'll be in that conversation.
Point blank period. Bam. There's no better way to end that discussion.
Yeah. We got more on that card to come, and we're actually going to transition into the rest of the weekend, Dom. We'll start with one co-main event, or not co-main, the feature bout. The co-main in terms of MMA saw former 2-division champion Martin Nguyen get a unanimous decision over Leonardo Casotti. Dominic, this was a hard-hitting fight. This was a good card for one, I thought. In this fight, this fight was hard-hitting. It was fun. Martin Nguyen, a fun fighter. Like I said, former 2-division champion. And, still putting on fun fights, even though maybe he's not as good as he was at his peak. And Leonardo Casotti, to his credit, held in there and also had his moments of looking like he could take over the fight. I didn't really score it live, so I don't really know kind of how I was leaning in one way or another, but I just had a lot of fun watching it. And I wanted to give those two guys a shout out. And then for Bellator, I'll kick it to you for this one, Dom. Couple fights that I thought I'd throw on here. Jeremy Kennedy gets the unanimous decision win over Pedro Carvalho. And then that's actually former title challenger Pedro Carvalho. Didn't mention that on Friday. And then Bryce Logan goes into Peter Queeley's hometown, or his home country, Ireland. Gets the TKO in round 2. A really nice knockout for him. So, Dominic, any takeaways from those two fights, or anything else on Bellator 291?
So for the Kennedy fight, one-way traffic. The only thing he didn't do was finish that fight. He dominated that fight for 15 straight minutes.
Complete grind of a performance, and that's really what Jeremy Kennedy does, and he did it very well here.
Yeah, he's 19-3 now. He has a wealth of experience in the PFL and in the UFC, as Noah enlightened me with on Friday. He's 4-1 inside the Bellator cage now. Only lost to Adam Boric, and that went the distance. So he's going to be top 3 now. This was number 5 versus number 3. And if you dominate someone ranked ahead of you like that, you easily take their spot. I kind of posed the question of, with that performance, was it enough to earn a title shot? Also, I just don't really know what they're going to do with this division. I'm looking at guys ahead of him. There is Adam Boric and AJ McKee. That's all that is ahead of him at the featherweight division. AJ's kind of in between as well. I think he's going to be in.
Well, he's at lightweight.
Yeah. So they're doing a Grand Prix, right?
So,
yeah. So exactly. So you can basically eliminate him. Maybe he runs it back, Jeremy Kennedy, with Adam Boric. Winner that gets a title. We'll see. But he's on a win streak, man. So I wouldn't be upset if he got that shot. For Peter Queeley, get him out of Ireland. He can't fight there anymore. I feel so bad for him. The most badass entrance in all. I'm going to say it. I know you tweeted it, said one of. I'm going to say it is. It is the best entrance in MMA. But my God, it doesn't do nothing for him because he has lost 3 straight fights. 0-3. All of them have happened in Ireland. I feel so bad for him in his home country. Don't get me wrong. He's fighting good competition, but this was a big step back compared to the other two, fighting an unranked Bryce Logan, and he got knocked out. I know he was in control until he wasn't, so I'll give him credit there. It's unfortunate for a guy that, in the first 2 cards he main evented, I think both of them, or one of them was for a title even against Pitbull. So it is just, it's so sad. But for Bryce Logan, thrill and agony, he's going to be a top 10 ranked lightweight in the world now for Bellator. So good on him. Huge win. Got to finish over a guy that's hard to finish, I'll say. Yeah, I'm sorry, Peter, but you can't fight in Ireland anymore. I don't make the rules.
But Dom, can we at least have him come and just walk out?
Just do the entrance? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Or can we give his entrance to a better fighter, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. Something's got to change.
That was kind of mean. That was kind of mean.
That was a little mean, Noah, but it's fine. Whatever.
But let me just say, Jeremy Kennedy, I actually want to see him run it back with Aaron Pico. I don't know what Aaron
Oh,
Pico's recovery time is,
no.
but that fight I felt like was the right fight to make. And then Aaron Pico's shoulder blew out and they
Yeah.
couldn't, or separated, whatever. They couldn't put it back in place. I think that's the fight. I think the winner of that fight would be fighting for a title.
Mm,
Adam Boric had his chance at a title. He got dominated by Patricio Pitbull. So, um, I think those are the two guys. Get some fresh blood up there.
yeah.
Maybe one of those guys can take the title from an all-time great in Bellator, Patricio Pitbull. Um, yeah, here's my thing with Peter Queally, man. He's 2-4 in Bellator. He's
Mm,
obviously came into Bellator later in his career. This is a guy that fought for Cage Warriors back in the day. Always been a fun fighter, been one of those SBG guys out there in
yep.
Ireland. So
Yep.
he kind of carries a bit of, obviously, you look at his entrance, the guy feels like a big deal
Yeah.
when he goes into the cage. But, and you're right. I think what holds me back from saying it's the best entrance in MMA
Mm,
is the fact that he's just not that good anymore. Like the entrance is always going to be fire. It's always going to be
mm,
fun. But I was sitting there, Dom, going, I really wanted to bet against him going in because I'm like, it just seems like when he goes to Ireland, he just can't,
yeah.
it just doesn't work out. And the fact that these losses are coming via finish, I'm not seeing much of a positive outlook for the future for Peter Queally right now. He is, I'm sure, going to get another fight. They did announce they're going back to Ireland in September. I think it was September
Okay.
23rd. So I'm sure he'll be booked for that card.
Yeah.
Um, and we'll see what happens there. I can't imagine coming back to the show and being like, oh boy, 0-4. I mean, this is
Dude.
turning into Derek Lewis level stuff in Texas. I mean,
Yeah. In Houston, I just remember too, because I'm looking, Bryce Logan was 0-3 in
yep.
Bellator coming into this
I'm
fight.
glad you brought that. I was going to say that too.
Yeah.
I thought I actually thought both guys like had their moments
Yeah.
of looking pretty good. But Peter Queally that's kind of the Peter Queally story over these last
It
two
is
fights.
true. Yeah.
Is he'll look good, but then he keeps himself open for counters so much, and
Mm.
that's really what happened here. He was up against the fence, like
Oh, that
he
elbow,
really,
dude.
yeah. I mean, it was a nasty one for sure, out of the clinch, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
good win for Bryce Logan. I don't necessarily have a ton of confidence in him either because, like you
Mhm.
said, he was 0-3. But it was definitely like it's a fight that felt bigger than what both guys were really bringing to the table. Like the
Yeah.
crowd really made this fight
Yeah.
as they do at these Ireland shows.
True.
But I thought it was a good card. I mean, a lot of fights. You
Shoot.
said I didn't even realize it. I mean, we were watching Bellator from 11:30 to 7. So
Yeah. 18 fight card. That's
and I gave PFL a lot of grief for their championship card for
yeah. Yeah.
maybe it was because 11:30 to 7 is easier to stomach than like 6 p.m. or 4 p.m. to midnight. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
the first half of the day is a little easier to commit to that, especially because I'm not really paying attention to all the fights on the prelims. I'm, of course, watching Magomed Sharipov. Shout out to him.
Mhm.
Um, Kieran Clark. I'm still figuring out
That
how
guy's a
Kieran.
stud
Yeah,
too.
he looks damn good. He opened the main card. Sinead Kavanaugh had kind of a weird fight with Janae Harding.
Yeah.
Not a ton. I didn't put it on here because I was like, yeah, that was kind of a. She kind of didn't look as good as I thought she would in that fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, I have to give a quick shout out, by the way, to MVP Michael Venom Page. He was on commentary for like half the
Yeah,
prelims. I
yeah,
thoroughly enjoyed listening to him
dude. I
commentate.
think
So
he's got a future for sure.
yeah.
He was damn good. And
And
doesn't
you
he
add in
feel
the
like the kind of
accent,
guy?
dude.
Yeah, he feels like the kind of guy who would seamlessly transition into commentary. I mean, this is a guy that has the name, the
Yeah.
popularity.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe he's hit his peak as a fighter though, and that
Mm-hmm.
he's never really going to be like a champion.
Mm-hmm.
So, if depending on how long he wants to keep fighting, he could tomorrow just transition into
Oh,
being like a commentary guy. And whether it's for Bellator, which obviously would be the most fitting, or if he were to go somewhere else and do it, I want to see him continue to do that. He was great.
yeah, and the guy that was with him, like the color commentary part, he was
Mhm.
really well too. I'm blanking on his name, but they just flowed really well. And MVP, say what you want about the guy, he's got a wealth of experience in Bellator. He knows the fight game. and it was really good to listen to him. He's very knowledgeable. So
Yeah, well said, well said. So moving on to UFC Vegas, insert number here. We're actually going to slow things
whoops.
down for a second, Dom.
Hmm?
We're going to slow things down because we're going to talk about Tatiana Suarez for a second. So she made her return. What was it? 4-year layoff.
Damn near, yeah.
Second longest layoff for an active UFC fighter. Am I saying that right? For a fighter in UFC history or something like that.
Wow, really?
I think the first is Nick Diaz.
Oh, yeah. What was that, like 6 years?
Yeah, I think that's because I saw when I was watching at B-Dubs, it said that, and I was thinking, who's first? And I'm like, dude, I think it's Nick Diaz.
Yeah, that has to be.
GSP could also be in that conversation, but
Yeah.
Tatiana comes back, massive layoff in a new weight class, 125 pounds, massive favorite. She was like a minus 725 or something like that. And she gets a second round submission over Montana De La Rosa, 2 minutes, 51 seconds in. I will admit, I was somewhat skeptical, Dom. And when I say skeptical, I don't mean that I mean, I did bet on Tatiana. I put her in a parlay. I thought she would win, but I wasn't sure how good she was going to look coming back.
No, yeah, I
And
understand.
I
For
and
sure.
I don't think that's a knock on her. Like even if
No,
she looked
no.
like not great, it's not like, oh, okay, well all of a sudden she's just washed up.
Yeah.
It's a massive layoff. And I've never done it, never practiced, never trained. But I tend to believe that ring rust can be a real thing, no matter what Dominic Cruz tries to tell me.
Right.
So, I just think that has an impact on anybody, not just physically, but mentally to get back
That's the
in there
thing.
after a
Yeah.
big layoff. And, I don't think this was as good of a performance as she's had in her past. I mean, I think she has looked more dominant in the past fights, and that's not really my takeaway here, though. I just think the resilience to come back in here and to get a finish and to look good, that said enough for me that she's back. And I don't know, I try to keep my expectations in check a little bit. When you have such a traumatic long layoff, I forgot, Don. We were talking about all her injuries. I forgot she had thyroid cancer.
Yep. Before the Ultimate Fighter.
I mean, we're talking about so much trauma, physical
Yeah.
trauma to have to come back from. So I'm not trying to put those expectations of like, what I've done with Erin Blanchfield, where I've
Mm-hmm.
essentially said she's a future UFC champion.
Yeah.
Tatiana, I want to believe can do that, but I don't want to put those expectations on because then if she doesn't, it'd almost be like a disappointment. And I just feel like
Yeah.
anything she's able to do from here is
Yeah.
a positive and is kind of defeating the odds a little bit. What do you think? Because I know you were higher on her in general than I was, and she came in here and got a finish in the second round. Was this everything you wanted to see? And are you back on Tatiana, future UFC champion hype train?
Come on, no. I never even got out of the station. I stayed on the train and I'm still on it, man. She is just a special talent. It's just such a shame that we've missed a lot of prime years. That's
Mm,
the biggest thing that sucks so badly for her because I think she would have already been a champion and probably still a champion today, considering she hadn't fought since 2019. I think she matches up so well with a lot of people at 115. And not to mention, she didn't look like a small 125er. No, I think she
mm.
could very much compete with top dogs in that division. And her versus an Erin Blanchfield one day sounds mighty fun. Her versus Valentina, any of those ladies at 125 is awesome. But she said 115's next, so I won't focus on 125. Focus in on 115. How's the UFC going to push her? I think's my question. Is she going to get one top 5 fight? She wins that, gets her chance being with the layoff. I think that's a possibility. We'll see. We will see. You know what?
Well,
Let me take
what would you want to see? Like,
let me take a gander.
because remember, Dom, when Aaron Blanchfield, this is kind of your Aaron Blanchfield, that's why I'm kind of making
Hmm.
the comparison there. When she beat Molly McCann, she moved into she was already outside the top 10 or right at 10.
Yeah.
And I said, give her a title eliminator like now.
Yeah.
And that's a risky investment to say that because you might, for someone her age, you might want to push her along slowly. But now you got Tatiana, who's 32. How quickly, if you are in the war room, how quickly are you pushing her? What's the next step? Is she getting a top 5 strawweight?
I would. I think the biggest difference here in the comparison with Aaron is that we already knew Tatiana was amongst the elite before her injuries. We're talking someone that had beaten Alexa Grasso. Yes, not the greatest at 115, but that's a good win. I don't care. Carla Esparza finished those two, by the way, and beat Nina Nunes when Nina was at the top of her game. Now she comes back and beats Montana De La Rosa, which again I think is just a perfect comeback fight. Montana is no slouch. I don't care what anybody says. I won't accept any Montana De La Rosa slander on this show. So yes, I think you give her a top 5 matchup because we already knew that she was there. You saw what she looked like in her comeback fight. I think she looked definitely good enough to get a top 5 opponent. She said she would love to fight Rose. I don't necessarily see that specific matchup happening, but anyone there with Carla, Rose, Lemos, Marina Rodriguez as a fight book, Yan Xiaonan. I love any of those matchups. It doesn't matter to me. She wins that fight. She gets a title shot. She will become a champion, Noah. And maybe, just maybe, one day, the 2-weight world champion. But
I'm glad, Dom, that you decided to, you named every contender there that she could fight. So
I just had to name the top 5.
Yeah, I couldn't come in and give you like hey, here's who I think she's gonna fight. So now I've lost
which one I prefer.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's lost her. No, who do you prefer her to fight out of that group?
Oh, I would absolutely love to see her fight Rose. I think that would be awesome. I mean, there's no better way to test her against someone than a former 2-time champion, someone in their prime as Rose Namajunas. She's already beaten Carla. Lemos would be fun too. Marina's booked. Lemos or Rose, but I would prefer Rose because I think that's pretty awesome. Making a main event.
I definitely think that fight won't happen, but I get
that's
why you would want it to happen. A matchup I really, because I think I'm a bit more like, okay, let's give her one more and then we can talk about getting her in like a title eliminator spot.
Yep.
Now, this is someone who already has a fight, and I forget when she's fighting. A matchup I would really like to see her in because I think it's a tough one in terms of styles. How about Mackenzie Dern?
I thought that's what you were going to say. Yeah.
Because Mackenzie Dern's about to fight here soon, ain't she? She's fighting.
She's fighting Angela Hill.
Angela Hill. That's right.
I think it's in April or May. It's May 13th, I think.
So maybe the timing doesn't add up quite right. But Dominic, I did say that I thought Amanda Lemos had a 0% chance of getting the next strawweight title shot, which I don't know if I feel as confident in that bold of a statement anymore because Zhang Weili's just chilling right now. And you got to think that, Rose hasn't really shown any sort of urgency to come back. So
give me Lemos and Zhang Weili and Rose versus Tatiana. I'd be sitting pretty.
And Andrade just lost, even though I feel like she's still kind of more deserving of a strawweight title fight, but it's hard to give it to someone who just lost. I would love to see Tatiana fight Amanda Lemos. I would. But I do think that Mackenzie Dern matchup's interesting just because, obviously Tatiana, female Habib, what they call her.
Yeah.
And we know how great of jiu-jitsu Mackenzie Dern has. Mackenzie Dern's biggest struggle has been her wrestling. Like she just offensively, when she tries to go for double legs or gets takedowns, she looks kind of rough trying to do it. So when you have someone who's bringing the wrestling to you, how does she look on her back? Is she able to kind of get any of those submissions, threaten with them at least? That'd be a very interesting fight. I would look forward to seeing that. And I think that's something you could put I would like to see her next fight, Tatiana, that is, be a main event.
Oh, please do. I don't
see
care
if
who
someone
it is.
Can someone take her to rounds 3, 4, 5, and if they can, how does she hold up? Because again, long layoff, all this physical trauma she's been through. There's no telling what kind of gas tank she has if she goes that far.
And cutting down the extra 10 pounds, Noah, too. Like I know she had been there and never really had problems, but she looked like a flyweight last night. Fair. Montana's pretty big, and she was the same size.
I always looked at Tatiana as being a large strawweight. Like I always thought she was. I actually didn't know that she said that because I was coming in here thinking, when am I going to put her up against next at flyweight?
Yeah.
Because again, I'm watching at B-Dubs. They didn't have the sound on for that Because fucking Indiana.
They almost didn't even have the fights on.
Indiana and Purdue basketball was on. And Indiana, massive college basketball state. So there was a ton of people there for that game. And so I didn't actually hear her say that. So I'm glad that you brought that up, or else I would have been sitting here pitching flyweight bouts for her. So she's definitely back. I'll be interested. I am very interested to see like how slow do they take her. Like, are we getting a little overzealous? Even me. Like, are UFC going to book her against like someone in the back half? That's possible. But I think at her age and showing what she's shown before,
I think you have to go a little quicker.
You just go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
The rest of this card, Dom, we saw some good fights. Mike Malott, round 1 submission over Johan Linesi. That was a pretty fun fight for as long as it lasted. I think pretty much everybody expected that one to be over quick, and it was.
Yeah.
Trevor Peek, Eric Gonzalez. What a wild fight that was.
1 second left.
Trevor Peek knocked out Gonzalez with 1 second left in the first round. It's not the most technical or high level MMA you're going to see this weekend, but boy, was it fucking fun.
Woo.
And then you had Jordan Levitt, the Monkey King, with a first round TKO. And then he did the dirty dancing dance.
You know how he does.
Man, I mean, I stand by what I said. If you get knocked out by Jordan Levitt, especially slammed, and then that man twerks over your dead body, you got to fight him again.
Oh. I say take a year off. Noah says fight him again.
You got to get up and fight him again. I don't care if you're concussed. Get in there.
Oh, in the cage immediately after. Okay.
I mean, you just got to be like, all right, got to fight you again.
Yeah. Okay.
If he twerks on you, does the splits, he's doing the dirty dancing dance. I mean, if I get knocked out by Jordan Levitt, you got to get back in there, champ.
I didn't hear no bell.
But he did get the knockout first round over Victor Martinez. A lot of people were kind of high on Martinez actually coming in. So that was probably a big surprise. 2 minutes, 32 seconds around number 1. And Dominic, a big sleeper for this weekend for me. Ode Osborne, Charles Johnson. Very close, very technical fight. Ode Osborne does get the split decision. I was happy about that. But maybe a bit surprising that this fight went the distance. I think a lot of people thought this one might go under that 2.5 rounds.
Yeah.
So what kind of stood out to you from the rest of the card for the UFC, Dom?
I mean, Mike Malott, I think, is a legit talent. He's really good. He's a finisher.
You just want to see him fight more, He feels like he really takes these big gaps.
If I'm not mistaken, because I believe when I was looking, it's like been one fight a year for him since 2019 or something like that. So if he can just become more active, the guy's really good. All 9 wins by finish. I think all 9 of them are in the first round. That's just quite an insane little fact there for him. That was some Canada on Canada violence. Great fight. Trevor Peek, he's never going to be in a boring fight. I saw what I needed to see. I don't care what his potential is. I know I'm going to have fucking fun watching him fight every time he gets a fight booked. Love that for him. That was just crazy. He didn't stop for 4 minutes and 59 seconds. Jordan Levitt, I'll tell you what, I regret not taking him at almost even odds because getting a little disrespected from losing to Patty, I felt was kind of a big thing odds-wise for Jordan Levitt here. Patty's not a bad loss. Love him or hate him, it's not a bad loss. Jordan Levitt is a pretty solid fighter. I like watching him fight. He's had some really interesting, not only quirky celebrations after he wins, but we're talking about a guy that's had a slam knockout, an inverted triangle submission, and now brutal knees in the clinch to win. I mean, he's done some fun things when he wins these fights. And in his losses, again, there's no bad loss or no good losses, but it's a good competition. So I like that for him.
Real quick, would you say that I thought Jordan Levitt looked bigger in this fight? Like he looked like he had put on some mass.
He's a thick guy, I feel like, for 155. Like maybe not height wise, but he's a big guy, I'd say.
So I don't know if that was just me, but he looked a little bit thicker coming in here than he did like against Patty, I thought.
Yeah. And then the last one, we love flyweight violence, even though this was a catchweight, it doesn't matter. Ode Osborne, Charles Johnson. It kept me from going 5-0 for my bets this week, but that's okay because it was a fun fight. You gave them the respect that they deserve. If there's one thing I'm proud of with our podcast in 2.5 years, it's the amount of love we show to both the men's and women's flyweight divisions, and they continued to deliver, so we're not going to say anything otherwise. Ode is good, man. Saw a more technical side of him in this fight. He's had like 10 of his last 11 in the first round. Kill or be killed. looked a lot better in this fight. Slowed things down. It was close. Don't get me wrong. I think it could have went either way, but I felt strongly that O'Day had won. Charles Johnson, a legit talent. Shout out to him taking this on like a week's notice. Nothing bad to say. Good fights. It more here on the rest than I expected for this card, but that's a good thing. Like we always say, sometimes they look rough going in, but if you get good things happening in the octagon, that's what matters most. That's what this card was.
Yeah, O'Day Osborne, Charles Johnson was. I thought it spoke to the quality of men's flyweight division. I even tweeted that out. Yeah, because these are two unranked guys.
Yeah.
And it was one of the higher level fights on the card in terms of like technical ability that we saw.
Yeah.
And I think both these guys have bright futures. O'Day is an interesting case because he's, had some rough moments. He's had some tough knockout losses or finish losses, but and when he's at his best, man, he is like a top 15 level talent. Charles Johnson, I still think is at that level, even though he's 1-2, I think, in the UFC. But the way he dominated Jimmy Flick, our boy, Jimmy the Brick.
Yep, Brick.
I know that was a long layoff for Jimmy, but still, I think he's very good. And you're right, taking this on such short notice and nearly wins this fight. Bright futures ahead for both, I hope.
Question real quick on this one. O'Day Osborne, top 15 next, Sue Maderji? That'd be fun.
I don't know. Is O'Day? I know this is a thin division.
There's only so many outside.
Thin in terms of numbers. So
yeah,
I don't hate it. I love me some Sue Maderji, so I would like to see him back. Yeah, it would be. I don't hate it. I guess I'm just not. I'm not 100% certain. Like, is O'Day Osborne really? Like, is he deserving of the top 15 opportunity? I guess so, but. Still a mixed record for him, so maybe he needs another one. But again, it's so weird when you're talking about this division. Like, there's only like 20-something names. So,
and I can't remember who his original opponent was either for this card. I can't.
I don't know. And I was gonna say I think there's more ranked fighters than unranked fighters in this division. So
yeah, I think so.
They're definitely working their way up. Who'd be an interesting fight for like Charles Johnson?
Who?
And I'm just saying it because they fought last week. Clayton Carpenter.
Ooh, yeah, I don't mind that at all. Clayton Carpenter
or O'Day Osborne. Either one of those guys, I think that'd be a good fight.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be against O'Day getting top 15. He's kind of a guy that's built a little bit of a name for himself for being an exciting fighter.
Yeah.
What's his nickname? Is he the Haitian sensation?
The Jamaican sensation.
Oh, Jamaican sensation.
But
sorry.
I think Neil Magny is the other one. So
okay.
His original opponent, by the way, was Denise Bondar. So if that tells anything
Denise
about how he was matched up, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's so uncertain at flyweight because I don't even know how many guys are technically signed in that division at this point. But like a year ago, there was more ranked fighters than unranked fighters. So
I'd say maybe 25, maybe.
I hope they got to be getting.
Hopefully
we got to be
more.
I'm like, come on, man! Like, we haven't had one flyweight main event since fucking Davison Moreno won.
That's just bullshit.
That's crazy.
Yeah, disrespect.
Get my man Raw Dog a main event,
please, in Ohio or Midwest, anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Dominic, let's move on to your below average bet slip. The final week without me here to either lower our numbers or raise them.
Yeah.
How did it go, Dom? Are we finally seeing some positives coming in?
Oh, man, no. I said last week I needed something big for your return into UFC 285 because we're going to have a big volume, I believe, coming up. I've been seeing your practice rounds these past 2 weeks. I know you're coming in with a statement to prove. We went 4-1. The only loss on the day was Johnson Osborne under 2.5. It is what it is. It was a fun fight, so that's all that matters. But 4-1, we went plus 1.95 units. So on the year, heading into UFC 285, we were at minus 2.15. Made up some ground. First positive week of the year. Oh, it was a struggle, but we finally got there, and it's perfect time. No returns. Hopefully I'm hitting a stride. Put that together. It's a recipe for disaster for the books, hopefully going into this middle of the year, second quarter of the year. Nothing really huge. We had Suarez by finish, only a half unit on that. That came late because of the Span fight getting canceled. 2-0 on Bellator parlays. Happy about that. And what was the other one? Oh, the UFC parlay was Selecki money line, Malat, Liness inside the distance, and it was Krylov span under 3.5. Lost that one, so it got bumped to minus 200. So we didn't win quite as many units, but that's okay. It was a good week. It's what I wanted. Now we ride.
Well, technically, Krylov span did not make it to round 3, so
True, I
feel
should
like
have
that
got all
should've
my odds.
yeah,
It's
I feel like you
bullshit.
should have cashed. That's what I was
Yeah.
saying. I was about to hit up my DraftKings rep and be like, "Yo, shouldn't I mean, technically, it didn't make it to round 3, so
Very true. Let's call it a big week, but it's fine. It was a good one.
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm excited to be back. I'm not excited for the gauntlet I'm gonna have to go through, but Dominic, I respect your decision on that one, so
Hey, what's it been though? Like 3 months since you were a part of the bet slip, I think.
it's been a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
I've
needed
done
that.
no good since then. So
Well, I've needed this break. You know what the final straw was? It was me betting on Kayla Harrison and then Claressa Shields,
that was what it.
one of the
Wow, it's
biggest
been a
upsets
long
of the year.
time. Whew.
Because I was on the bad end
Mm,
of all 3 major upsets last year. I
true.
had
That is
Usman
so
against
true.
Edwards. I had I had Izzy against Bahera, and then had Kayla Harrison against Claressa Shields. So
Mm-mm-mm.
you can only take so much as a man, and but I am back. I back.
Some would say better than ever.
If the last 2 weeks are anything to go off of, we should be in for some decent numbers, And next week we're definitely doing numbies, Dom. We're doing
Oh,
numbies in terms of like total bets.
yeah, we're going big.
We're going big. But Dominic, there's only one way we end the show around here. It's with a little segment we like to call closing statements.
Mm.
Point of the show where me and Dominic can talk about anything and everything, MMA related or not. So, Dominic, do you have any closing statements to send us off into the week?
What's everybody's thoughts on cheesecake? Because we are going to Cheesecake Factory the day we're recording this on Sunday, and I've never been there before. I've never been big on cheesecake, really not my thing. I'm not big on cream cheese, I guess is the main reason, but I feel like if I'm going to Cheesecake Factory, I am my hand has been forced, and I will be trying one today. I heard from our good friend JP, friend of the show, part of the Below Average Joe's brand, I guess, even technically, to try the Oreo cheesecake. So I will report back maybe on verbal sparring how I enjoyed it. But let us know if you like cheesecake, and if you do, what your favorite kind is. Noah, have you ever had Cheesecake Factory, and do you enjoy cheesecake?
I've had Cheesecake Factory a couple times, but it's been a long time since
Yeah.
I've been there. Now, cheesecake is actually my favorite dessert. So,
Okay. Two total opposite spectrums here.
so I am a big old cheesecake fan. I think we're learning, Dom, that the more we do this show, that me and your food taste are just
Couldn't be more different. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, maybe I should have wished I had more of your food taste. I might be a little thinner, but it's
Yeah.
maybe if I was instead of pizza rolls, if I was a bagel bites guy, maybe
That could have been the difference.
or if I was eating well done steaks or whatever.
Oh
the
boy.
fuck
Here we go.
Man,
Now you're
Jesus
just wanting to bring
Christ,
out all my darkest days on the
yeah,
show.
I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. Oh, I did. Something that was interesting. So for lunch on Thursday, my supply chain team went out to lunch. We went to Cracker Barrel,
Okay.
and I did a little breakfast thing,
Mm-hmm.
and it came with biscuits with gravy, and I did
Oh,
eat
good for
the
you.
biscuits with gravy, and they were good.
Okay. I love to hear that for you.
I don't dislike gravy. That was the whole misconception of that. You caused a riot by something that wasn't even factually said. I did not say I don't like gravy. I just said if I have my choice, I prefer to eat, more like butter or something on my.
Right.
And you kind of had a panic. You freaked out a little bit.
I did.
And then everybody was commenting and saying L take. And I'm like, dude, I didn't even say I didn't like it. I'm like, Dominic said that, not me.
I just needed you to feel my pain a little.
Yeah, I get it. It's I forget what they call two's great, but three's a crowd, something like that. I don't know.
Perfect. Yeah.
I don't have anything, so we'll just end it with the cheesecake.
Okay.
But my name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Slee. We are but just two of the below average Joes, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.